Ambassador Kiera Voss had survived 3 wars, 2 assassination attempts, and a particularly brutal tenure committee, but nothing had prepared her for watching a 7-foot alien commander have what could only be described as a complete nervous breakdown over a golden retriever. It started when Baxter wandered into the diplomatic chamber. The dog belonged to Captain Rodriguez from the security detail, and somehow the furry ambassador had slipped past 3 layers of protocol to investigate the interesting smells coming from humanity's first official meeting with the Zelhari Empire. Baxter did what any self-respecting dog would do in a room full of strangers. He went straight to the biggest, most intimidating figure and sat down, tail wagging, hoping for pets. Commander Qeth of the Zelhari stood 9 feet tall when fully extended, his bioluminescent skin shifting through colors that Voss's neural translator couldn't even begin to interpret. His species had mastered faster-than-light travel, quantum consciousness networks, and what appeared to be really impressive holographic projection technology. They had not, apparently, mastered the concept of emotional regulation. "What is this creature?" Qeth had asked, his voice carrying harmonics that made the water glasses on the conference table vibrate. "That's Baxter," Voss replied, trying to maintain diplomatic composure while internally cursing Rodriguez's inability to keep track of his dog. "He's what we call a companion animal. A dog. They're quite harmless." And that's when Qeth said it. The words that would echo through diplomatic channels for weeks to come, the phrase that would require 17 different emergency sessions and 3 separate psychiatric evaluations. "It's just a dog." The moment those words left his translator unit, something shifted in the alien commander's bioluminescent patterns. The soft blues and greens that had indicated calm curiosity throughout their negotiations suddenly flared into rapid bursts of orange and deep purple. His breathing, or whatever passed for breathing in his species, became erratic. Baxter, being a dog and therefore possessing exactly zero understanding of interstellar political implications, took this as an invitation to be more friendly. He padded closer and gently pressed his golden head against Qeth's leg. That's when the Zelhari commander screamed. Not a roar of anger or a battle cry, but a sound so raw and anguished that every human in the room felt it in their bones. Qeth collapsed to his knees, his massive frame shaking as he reached toward Baxter with one trembling hand, then jerked it back as if the dog were made of molten steel. "Get it away," he whispered, and his translator couldn't quite capture the harmonics, but Voss heard something that sounded suspiciously like sobbing. "Get it away from me." Security rushed in, Rodriguez scooped up a confused Baxter, and within minutes the chamber was empty except for Voss and her xenopsychology team, all staring at the spot where the most powerful military commander in known space had just suffered what appeared to be a panic attack triggered by a golden retriever. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, Commander Qeth had refused to meet with any human delegation unless accompanied by a full-armed escort of his own people. He wouldn't enter any room where Earth animals had been present. He demanded that all future negotiations take place in sterile environments with full atmospheric barriers between species. The peace treaty that had taken 2 years to negotiate was now hanging by a thread, and nobody could figure out why an alien who commanded fleets capable of turning planets to glass was apparently terrified of something that spent most of its day chasing tennis balls. "Ambassador," her aide Cameron called from across the observation deck of the orbital station, "we're getting another transmission from the Zelhari fleet. Commander Qeth is requesting additional security protocols for tomorrow's session." Voss sighed and looked out at the sleek alien vessels hovering in formation beyond the viewport. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, their organic curves suggesting they'd been grown rather than built. Beautiful and terrible, like everything about the Zelhari. What kind of additional security? Full environmental suits for all human personnel. No organic materials allowed in the negotiation chamber. And Cameron paused, consulting his tablet. He wants confirmation that no Earth animals are anywhere on the station. "There's a cat in hydroponics," Voss said automatically. "I know. I already told them about Whiskers. They've requested the cat be relocated to a different sector." Voss rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building behind her eyes. The Zelhari had approached Earth with offers of technology, trade, and protection from less friendly alien civilizations. All they wanted in return was a simple non-aggression pact and some mining rights to a few asteroid belts humanity wasn't using anyway. It should have been the easiest diplomatic victory in human history. Instead, she was apparently negotiating the galaxy's first interspecies peace treaty based on pet allergies. Cameron, get me Dr. Reeves from Xenopsychology. And see if you can track down Rodriguez and Baxter. I want to run some tests. What kind of tests? Voss turned back to the viewport, watching the alien ships maintain their perfect formation, and wondered if she was about to either save two civilizations or trigger the first war started by a golden retriever. The kind that might tell us why the most advanced military commander in the galaxy is afraid of a creature that gets excited about squeaky toys. Dr. Elena Reeves had spent 15 years studying alien psychology, but she'd never seen biorhythm readings quite like these. The data from Commander Qeth's breakdown painted a picture that made her deeply uncomfortable. His neural pattern spiked the moment he made physical contact with the dog, she explained to Voss in the station's secure briefing room. But look at this, the reaction wasn't fear, at least not initially. For the first 0.3 seconds, his bioluminescence showed what we'd classify as joy. Pure, overwhelming joy. Voss studied the holographic readouts floating between them. Then what happened? Trauma response. Something triggered a massive psychological defense mechanism. Ambassador, I think the Zelhari have been lying to us about something fundamental. Before Voss could respond, Cameron burst through the door, his usually composed demeanor cracked with urgency. We've got a problem. I was running background checks on Zelhari cultural databases, trying to understand their reaction to companion animals. He paused, his face pale. They don't have any. Any what? Any animals. At all. Their homeworld's ecosystem was completely sterilized 3,000 years ago. Official records say it was a natural plague, but... He activated his tablet, projecting fragmentary data files. I found some corrupted archives. Ambassador, I think they did it themselves. The room fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Voss felt pieces of a horrifying puzzle beginning to slide into place. Get me a direct line to Commander Qeth, she said quietly. And bring Baxter. Ambassador, are you insane? Cameron started, but Voss was already heading for the door. Maybe. But we're about to find out if this treaty is worth saving. An hour later, Voss stood in a neutral meeting chamber with Baxter at her side, facing Commander Qeth across a barrier of hardened plasma. The alien was flanked by 6 armed guards, their weapons trained not on her, but on the empty space around them, as if they were protecting their commander from invisible threats. Commander, Voss began, I need to ask you about your homeworld. Qeth's bioluminescent patterns immediately shifted to warning colors. That subject is not open for discussion. What happened to your companion species? The change in the commander was instantaneous. His massive frame began to shake, and the guards moved closer, forming a protective circle. You do not understand what you're asking. Then help me understand. Voss kept her voice gentle, but she didn't step back. Your people have technology that could terraform dead worlds, cure diseases, extend life indefinitely. But you've spent 3 millennia traveling the galaxy, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. Why? Because we cannot. The words came out as a whisper, and Qeth's translator struggled with harmonics that sounded like grief made audible. Because we destroyed the only creatures who ever loved us unconditionally, and we cannot bear to risk doing it again. Baxter, who had been sitting patiently, tilted his head at the sound of distress. Dog instincts overrode diplomatic protocol, and he padded closer to the barrier, whining softly. They were called the Vethani, Qeth continued, his voice breaking. Small, loyal, joyful creatures who bonded with our young. They lived in our homes, shared our lives, loved us without question or condition. And when the Great Plague came, a disease that affected only them, we were faced with a choice. Voss's heart sank as she began to understand. The plague was spreading. It threatened to jump species, to infect us. So we made the logical choice. The safe choice. Qeth's entire body was now cycling through colors that spoke of anguish beyond translation. We sterilized our world. Every animal, every plant, every microorganism that might carry the disease. We chose survival over love. But you survived, Voss said softly. Did we? Qeth looked directly at her for the first time since the breakdown. We became masters of technology, conquerors of space, builders of empires. But we lost the capacity for unconditional love. We lost the part of ourselves that made life worth living. When I saw your companion animal, when it approached me without fear or agenda, just seeking connection. He gestured helplessly. I remembered what we were. What we chose to destroy. Baxter had pressed himself against the barrier, somehow sensing the pain radiating from the alien commander. His tail wagged slowly, hopefully. The Vethani used to do that, Qeth whispered. They would come to us when we were in distress. They would stay until the pain passed. Voss made a decision that would either save two civilizations or end her diplomatic career. She deactivated the barrier. Ambassador, no. Cameron's voice crackled through the calm, but she ignored it. The guards raised their weapons, but Qeth held up a hand to stop them. Baxter, freed from the barrier, walked directly to the towering alien and sat down, leaning against his leg exactly as he had 3 weeks ago. This time, Qeth didn't pull away. With trembling hands, he reached down and gently touched the golden fur. Perhaps, Voss said quietly, it's time your people learned to love again. Commander Qeth wept then, his bioluminescence cycling through colors of grief and hope and something that might have been healing. And somewhere in the space between species, between past and future, a new kind of alliance was born. One that understood that survival without love isn't really survival at all. The peace treaty was signed 3 days later, with one unusual addendum. The Zelhari requested permission to establish a small colony on Earth, not for resources or territory, but to learn how to live with companion animals again. Baxter, completely unaware that he'd just prevented an interstellar war and possibly saved 2 civilizations, was mainly excited about all the new friends who wanted to pet him.